We are on the line, to the bottom of page Chavches, and the line begins Hamalubosh, Bishmias Ho'ezen. That's 7 lines from the bottom of the page. And we had discussed quite extensively this morning the principle that the Rebbe is explaining, that Oineg, that is at the center, that maintains both in terms of its presence.
Paltiel, can you bring the phone closer to yourself if that's possible?
How's it now?
It's still a little faint. I don't know for me. I don't know anybody else on the conference line. You want to speak up?
1 second, let me see. How's it now?
It's about the same. I don't know. Maybe it's my phone. Nobody seems to be having a problem with me. So just.
I'm not. I don't have the octopus today. For some reason, my line is. I guess the guys who did the floor did something to it.
Okay. You just go ahead and I'll listen.
All right. So, in everything, even the simplest koichos, at the core is the element of oineg. And as we discussed, we discussed quite extensively this morning that this oineg that we're talking about over here is not the oineg that motivates a person to achieve, to get someplace in order to get oineg. This is not the oineg that this is talking about. The oineg that he's talking about is the actual activity itself, the koyach itself. In order for it to function, it has to have at its core the oineg element. Pardon me. In order for the eye to see, not to be interested in what it sees, but to see, there has to be oineg in the ear. And the same goes about all other koiches.
There's the obvious question that comes up based on the top of the page that the Torah is the mamutza, and it seems either the Torah brought the Talmud everywhere, and thereby.
Well, you know that this question is out of place right now, don't you?
Yeah. I wanted to preface it to say that this is probably going to get answered.
It's out of place completely. You have to try to understand what is being explained. Okay. This is in line to explaining this thing. That, okay, so the oineg, this is at the core of everything. The oineg, it says, Ike kiyum mitzuyusum, Ike chiyusum. And we discussed today the two things that are identified. And in everything there is its mitzuyus and there is its chayus. And both of these are dependent on the oineg element. Then he says that this is why all right, we'll continue now further. We'll come to this. Okay, the Ran begins Hamulubish Shmias Oezen B'Koil Ore B'Shir V'Nig. The oineg that is imbued and that comes into Shmias Oezen, into the experience of hearing, that is experienced in the ear. B'Koil Orev, in the sweetness of the voice, V'Shir V'Zimah V'Nigun, in a song. So, as we explained this morning, we are talking about the actual sound rather than the message in the sound that touches the seichel and the midas. There is oineg in that. V'chein oineg ha'melubesh b'reyach ha'boisem ha'toiv. Similarly, the oineg that is imbued in the reyach, in the smell, we're talking about the four senses right now. Talk about Taniyo, Shmiya, and now Reyach, the smell. Aboisem HaToiv, the pleasant psomim. V'oineg amlubish b'dibur. And then there is oineg that is imbued into speaking. There has to be an oineg experience in speech in order to be able to speak. And similarly, in the more pnimisdike, deeper koichos, kmoi b'seichel amidos, such as seichel amidos, sheyesh b'hem, tainu God, in which there is tainu God, a great element of tainu. And then also on the opposite side, even in the koiches hayoset achtenim, the most lowest elemental koiches, in all of them there is the element of tainug hanefesh. I know, and the point in this is, why is there tainug hanefesh in all of these koiches, in all koiches? Mipnei she'atainug yike kiyumah v'chiyusa. Because the tainug is the ike kiyumah, is the principle of their standing power, existence, the chiyusam and the chayas. These two terms we discussed this morning. Alkei mispashed hu bekulam. Thus, the oineg is mispashed, spreads forth in all of these koiches. As I said, we discussed extensively the oineg this morning, its significance and its source and so forth. What could be added at this juncture is that this point, that oineg is mispashit in all the koiches, give us a new perception of koiches and the activity of koiches. A new perception because I speak of the war of the perception, but it gives us a truer insight how koiches, what koiches are. In every activity there are two things. There is the action itself, such as walking, talking, smelling, the act itself. And then there is the motivation behind it, like You can't walk unless you're walking somewhere. You want to get someplace or whatever. There has to be a reason. There has to be something that motivates, initiates your walking. This inyan, that the activity requires motivation, this is in addition to the koyach itself. You already have the koyach, you're able to walk. The motivation is not to enable you to walk. The motivation is in order to get this koyach ha'alicha active, to do something. But the koyach ha'alicha itself, that already is present. What we are saying here is that the koyach ha'alicha is really in itself independent of the motivation that initiates it. You're able to walk not because you have a place to walk to. You're able to walk because you have a koyach ha'alicha. The koyach ha'alicha has its own staying power, its own chayus.
Its own what power?
Staying power, existence. This is true about every koyach. We went through a lot of detail over here. Riyah, Shmi, and every koyach. In other words, you do not need motivation in order to enable the koyach to function. You need motivation to get yourself involved in it. This is a different level completely. And this level, briefly, is speaking about the engaging of the human being himself, because a person has many koyches, and he has many interests. In order to focus the human being, everything that a person does takes away from something else. If he is speaking, then he is not focused on something else. He's not singing at the same time. He's not walking at the same time. He's not thinking at the same time, the same degree as other times. Every activity preoccupies the person to a certain degree, the whole person, way beyond the activity itself. This in that the activity is permitted to preoccupy the person and get his attention to do this is the motivation factor. That's a separate thing. That's in order that the person should dedicate his time and himself to this activity. But the activity itself also has a life and a presence. It lives independently of the motivation. This is an extremely important insight to understand when, especially in the world of psychology, a person has to have some motivation, some interest in order to get up and do. He does have to have an interest to get up and do, but that's the getting up and do, the occupying him. But the activity, the ability to do it, is independent of that. And there is an oin in the activity itself. Walking is a dover shel oineg. Wherever he is walking.
Are you talking about something before that, right? This is, the onig that you just said right now is not the onig we're talking about, right?
Which is the onig we're talking about. The actual onig that's mislabish in the koyach itself. What is the message in this? message in this is that everything has a life of its own. And we discussed at great length this morning. The Ayin of Oyneg in everything is because Oyneg relates directly to the Ein Sof. This is how the Ein Sof is contained in every koach. This is what permits everything to exist. I thought that maybe this would be sufficient, but I see that it's not sufficient. We have to contrast this view against the secular view. And the reason we have to contrast it is because the secular view is what has found its way in our minds. The secular view is that there is no such thing as chayus, as life. If something moves, if my hand moves, it's identical to the watch moving. The watch has no chayus, no oyneg in moving. It's moving because something is pushing it. My hand, according to them, is the same thing. Something is pushing me to walk, to move the hand. That's such a terrible misconception, and so totally false, and so totally far away from the truth. There's a chayus in the hand, an oyneg in the hand, in any activity that the hand does, whether it's throwing a ball, writing, painting, or just plain moving around. Exercising. There's an initial life element which does not come from the hand. The reason that they come up with this stupid description is because they don't recognize that there is a creator. They will say, where is it coming from? There has to be something that's pushing it. It's coming from the presence of the Creator. The Creator created everything, gave everything a presence, and a chayus. And there is a chayus in everything. And this chayus is represented in the form of oyneg. The reason it's presented in the form of oyneg, we explained several times over these days, and I will repeat again, is that oyneg is unique amongst all the various koiches that we experience. In that, oyneg unites directly rather than through some kind of a connector. Seichel has to have a reason why you're thinking this, what's motivating it. Everything has to have, there is a gap between, like if I'm grabbing this cup, there is the cup and there's my hand, and I'm grabbing the cup. My hand, even if I'm holding the cup, my hand doesn't become one with that cup. I'm holding the cup. The cup is, while it's in my hand, it's a separate entity. I feel it, it's true, so I feel it according to the way I feel it. It doesn't become my cup. I don't feel, so to speak, the cup because the cup is feelable. I feel the cup because I feel it. Oyneg is unique. Where oyneg relates to things seamlessly. It is one thing with its source. And this is why it comes in the form of oyneg. This is the actual experience of life itself, of life that's imbued in everything in the world. It's not of its own possession, it is something that's imbued into it.
It would seem it's not it is experienced. It's above it, like the breathing in a way. It's above experience.
That's right. It's like the breathing. Okay, it's even more than the breathing because breathing is still an activity as we discussed, but it is, in contrast, breathing versus eating. This is a similarity. It does not need a motivation. It senses life itself. Motivation is necessary when I'm doing something which is not me. But this is me.
So there's two
The
levels.
Chai itself.
So there's two levels of oinig. Oinig that allows the koyach to activate, and then there's an oinig in. Is there another level of oinig in actually being motivated to use the koyach?
Yeah, but I said there's two different levels for thinking. There's the
Right.
oinig in the
Okay.
total person.
That's what I was asking before.
The total person. Then the oinig in every koyach. In everything, that's what I'm saying. Everything in existence and oinig.
So beyond
Even on the most minute level.
beyond the four koyachas that were mentioned here, it's in every other koyach as well.
You know what I'm saying? It's as I said, not for these four koyachas are only an example. Even in the four koyachas which are senses, but then in the higher koyachas, seichel amid is also the same. We just finished saying it.
Okay.
I didn't bring water. I'm sorry.
But is there a way to show somebody or prove to somebody if they don't believe that? They believe that it's just like mechanics and sparks and stuff, like a computer.
There is a way. There is a way. However, you can show it to them peripherally. You know what peripherally means? Externally, because it's not external. You can show it to them if they'll be honest and you're asking questions. How do you feel under this account? If you're on this account, they will sense, oh yeah, this is something which is beyond my control. In other words, you have to point their attention to their own experiences, and then they will see it. This is not something that can be presented logically. To us, this is logic, because we readily recognize that everything exists because the Rebbeinu creates it, and therefore in everything there is a Rebbeinu, there is a koyach and which manifests itself in the form of oinig, and we explained this morning extensively. This morning, and other days, why dafke oinig, as I mentioned today before, and therefore, to us this becomes almost logical. But if you say to someone who has a different perception, and that is the way he thinks, for him, it is the only way to do that is if he is willing to follow you, and is willing to go through it and analyze his own experiences. You can point to it. And that is like in many of the things that we mentioned in our class. Many of the things I mentioned in the class. Like the common thing, say if you invite somebody for lunch, and you serve him the lunch, and then you leave him and say goodbye, I'm going elsewhere. And everybody recognizes that this is a terrible insult. What's insulting about it? What is he missing? What's he missing? This sense of reality.
You can't say like it's just rude. It's like a convention.
Why is it rude?
It's a
I gave you,
convention.
I invited you for lunch, I gave you lunch. It's a good lunch.
convention that we set.
Convention. You know, this is just lining yourself against what you see.
Yeah.
All right. Tainug is mispashet bekulam, is mispashet in all of these koichos, because the Tainug, this is iki kiyum v'chiyus. This is the principle of their kiyum and chayus. As I mentioned many times, please understand, when a human being does a simple activity, it's not a robot that's doing it. It's a living entity. And this living entity is not only that he has a seichel, he knows what he is doing, and he has a purpose and so forth, way beyond. The activity itself is a living activity, he experiences it. Because of this oinek element. Okay, let's continue right. 3 lines from the bottom. Hinei hatainug hazeh, this tainug that we have now, so to speak, identified in all the koichos individually. Hagam shebo behagbolo behakoichos, although that the tainug is bo means it manifests itself. Behagbolo, in a very finite manner, behakoiches, in the koiches. Each koyach has its particular degree and experience of tainug. The tainug in seichel and the tainug in walking are not identical in terms of the depth and in terms of the capacity of the tainug. It's a different kind of tainug. Behagbolo. Let me go a little bit more in Hagbola Ba'koiches. Hagbola Ba'koiches means that the oinek consists in experiencing the particular koich. Even though this oinek is actually drawn from the highest, the general fight and the general oinek in life itself. This is the life element. But when there's this particular activity, it isn't that you're feeling the oinek in life. You're feeling the oinek on this particular activity. And there is no comparison in terms of the intensity, the depth of oinek in living per se, and in a particular koich. That's Hagbola. So therefore, even though this tainug is manifest in a mahagbola, in a finite manner in the koiches, nonetheless, we have to understand that this tainug, this limited tainug is tainug ha-nefesh. It is of the tainug of the nefesh. Shemisaneg b'chol zeh. It is the nefesh ultimately that's misaneg in all these things. As we sang this morning, the emphasis on the word mispashet, and here also we said mispashet. What is mispashet alluding to? That there is one single source. It's not separate separate Tammuz. There's one single source of tainug. That tainug is mispashet in all the countries, and therefore, the tainug that's in one koyach, the tainug in the other koyach, It's different in terms of its quantity and quality and so forth, but it's actually the identical koyach. Is it tainug hanefesh? In other words, it is not untrue or incorrect to say, in a very deep sense, that this is the tainug of living, even though we have distinguished now between them. And we say tainug of living is much broader and greater than tainug in talking. But it is the same tainug on a limited level. It's nimshach into speech. There cannot be oineg in speech without having a nefesh time be alive. We can't view a robot, no matter how adept it becomes, you design it in terms of its robotic activity, that it should have oineg in its robotic activity. Why? Because it doesn't have a nefesh. It doesn't have chayes.
It seems like that human activity could not be replicated at all. Since it's a human activity and it has human tainug in it, it would seem like nothing could imitate it, nothing could come close.
Absolutely, we can't imitate it.
But yet,
Tainug is a direct godly presence. That's what I'm trying to point out. There's no way you can imitate that.
So, speech synthesizer, I mean, the ways that people make things that it just seems that it should be in a completely different level. All human activity would have sort of no replication on any other level. But yet, you can record a voice and play it back, or you can have a speech synthesizer, or you can have...
All of them are lifeless activities. They don't compare to the human activity.
So outwardly they sort of a reproduction, but they don't compare at all.
The most correct way of expressing it is that they can only duplicate the effect of a koyach, not the koyach.
Isn't it strange that the effect is somehow separate from the tainug that's within it?
Right. Because the effect that we are talking about is the effect outside of the activity. How it affects outside. Basically, you can duplicate, but not its own internal experience. It does not have an internal experience. It only has an effect. Human activity starts up from the other side. It has an internal experience, and this is how it affects it.
And when we had the example of the hand movement in contrast to the way the watch moves, so is there we're saying there's an inner experience of movement that's kind of in the hand, and he sees, or that's the inner part of what's later seen as an effect.
No, it's not later seen as effect. The effect is not. The effect, you don't see in the effect that this is a living hand that did it. That, the effect is an external thing, but the living hand is how you experience the hand itself, the activity itself. All right, so this is the important thing which we discussed also this morning, and now the Rebbe says clearly, this tainug, even though it's behagbola, be'akochos, but hamezum tainug, HaNefesh Misana, because it is all part of the Tainik HaNefesh, that the Nefesh is Misanik in all of these koyches. The Nefesh is Misanik in all of these koyches. Now, the best mashal that we have developed that gives us this understanding is the mashal of the home. Like we say, the home is an essential element, an essential human element. And the Gemara says, Odom shein Beis ein loy Odom. It's a representative of what the human being is. The home does not consist only of the four walls and the ceiling and the floor. But the home gets populated with all kinds of all usable parts, furnishings, and so forth. And as we explained, that these furnishings that occupy the home, they are not separate entities. They are part and parcel of the home, even though you can have a table outside of the home, you can have a table in a restaurant. A table in the home has the effect of being a table in the home. As we discussed many times, all activities in the home, be they trivial, have an element of the highest of the home element. This is like illustrating the point that, like in the Nefesh and the Koyches HaNefesh, that all activities in the person, they have their own limited definition and oinag, and they're all representative and all connected and they're all drawing from the Chayes HaNefesh, from the Nefesh. Let's continue. Second line from the bottom. V'hainu, what we are saying here now, that this is Metanik HaNefesh and Misanik because that it is the Nefesh that is Misanik in all of this. It is not the hand, it is the Nefesh that's Misanik in all this. It is not the activity of the hand of the Koyach, it is the Nefesh that's in the Koyach. V'hainu, which means to say, she'ein ze behachushim ve'akoyches mitzad atzmom, that this oineg does not exist, and is not effective, and it is not active in the chushim and the koyches mitzad atzmom because of their own facility. Now the koyach has this oineg. Kiyim, rather zehu ma she'etzem ha'nefesh misanik. It is actually representing the principle and the reality that the nefesh itself is misanik. Miriyas or ayin, in the sight that the eyes sees, or bishmiyas or ezen, or in the hearing that the ear hears. Ukehagavna, and such other comparable and similar experiences. In all of these, the oineg is not independently experienced in the eye and in the ear. It is the nefesh that's experiencing the oineg that's in the eye and the ear. V'horaya, and the proof for that is Shaharei since that, behold, imein hanefesh b'tainuk be'atzmoi, if the nefesh is not in itself in a state of tainuk, the nefesh is not now disposed to the union of tainuk. It is preoccupied with other things. K'moi, for example, kasher yitztayer odom be'ez dover, when the person is actually in a state of tsar, and he's preoccupied with something that really bothers him, le'yikabel eineg mishum dover, he will not experience, accept means he will not experience eineg from anything. No matter what you do for him, he doesn't reach him. Why? Because eineg in anything is a direct draw from the netzem hanefesh. The person is in a state of tsar, the nefesh is mitzar, then he will not experience eineg from anything. Ukmei b'shor b'shirim alev ra. As the expression in the pasuk, shor b'shirim, he sings songs alev ra upon an evil heart, or it depends how you translate it, or a lev ra, a lev that is in a bad state. It's a useless state. They won't reach it. Even though the shira is heard in the ear, and the heart is a deeper, a broader, but the heart is a separate thing. The ear can appreciate the song, and then the heart will not accept it. It's not so. The ear will not appreciate the song, because the experience of eineg in the ear is the same experience that's going on in the heart. And if the heart is not disposed to eineg, the ear will not have it. Hare, thus we see that the tainug is in fact the tainug of the nefesh itself, not the tainug of the hand or of the koyach. It is the tainug of the nefesh. And yet still, hare hu bo behagbola behakoychois. Huh? I skipped that line. Okay.
Before you go back on that line, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Kasher yitztayer of the Ayin dover, that automatically cuts the cord in the Ayin of the nefesh itself. It's radical. That's like a radical statement.
Well, it depends. If he actually, it depends how deep this tsar is. If the tsar actually takes him over, if he feels the tsar in his nefesh, yes, he will not appreciate eineg and anything else.
What kind of tsar are we talking about here? This is like a case of deep depression?
Well, it doesn't even need to be deep depression, Chad Shalom, and any kind of tsar. He lost all his possessions, God forbid. He was a wealthy man, and overnight he lost it all. Give him a song, play Beethoven for him, or even get Schneier to sing for him. What can be more pleasurable, or David?
I've done that many times.
It doesn't work.
I think I'll pass.
I'll give Tzvak room to recite a poem.
So you say Tsar takes over the nefesh?
Huh?
Tsar takes over the nefesh?
Tsar, the nefesh is mitzvah. Tsar, just like eineg is a eineg on nefesh. Tsar is a tsar on nefesh.
Mitztayer is
Huh?
Mitztayer is
Suffering,
suffering.
in pain.
nefesh still has that quality of being misanik be'etzim. I mean, that's like the definition. The nefesh has to be
Otherwise, you
at all
wouldn't
times
hear at all.
misanik be'etzim. So why is it that when the nefesh is mitzar, it can't be mispashed into the kodesh?
Nefesh, like a cut of the finger.
It sounds like the external level of...
I'm trying to understand the concept of desire. Nefesh is desire, the ace is over. Just like, how does that happen?
The nefesh mitztayr, okay. Yes, we have to qualify it. The nefesh mitztayr, just like the oineg in a shir. I hear what you're saying, and for me to answer this question, so to speak, in totality, I have to go out of this discussion for a moment.
I didn't hear the question.
He's asking, nefesh mitztayr. Nefesh is immune to all external effects. I mean, it cuts a finger. That's our common experience. Emotional, right? You cut a finger. The finger is damaged. The nefesh is not damaged. You can't damage a nefesh. So what do you mean nefesh mitztayr? That's your question, right, Baruch? Hello? Confirmation required. What happened?
I'm a little out of sync because I'm watching on the screen, but yes, that's my question.
That's your question. You mean the screen is out of sync?
There's probably a lag.
There's a lag there? Okay.
Everybody's pulling.
All right, so we're back there. Okay, so that's your question. So here's the point. And yet we do say,
Neshama can have.
huh?
Because a neshama can have tsar, like when the soul comes down into the body from a high place. She's not happy about that.
Okay. All kinds of different levels of tsar, all kinds of different things. The question that he's asking is not the nefesh can have tsar. Can nefesh have tsar from some kind of a worldly experience on the goof? The nefesh is immune to all that. It's above all that. That's this question. Like we say, if you cut your finger, you can damage your finger, but you can't damage the chayas in the finger. So therefore, what's made his mistayr al eizeh dover. Eizeh dover means on something, on some kind of experience. Eizeh dover doesn't touch a nefesh. As a matter of fact, we all know, we understand, and we believe that when a person returns his soul to its maker after 120, it's a healthy soul.
No, but it's schmutzig.
Yeah, but if a person, let's say, sins, his neshama is
it has to go through, it has to cleanse itself from the schmutz.
It's still a healthy soul.
And if a
It's
person
schmutzig
does an
for
avera,
what?
his neshama isn't mitztayr.
I mean, is it the whole idea from Islamish in the goop is that the neshama is affected from the migraya goop. That's the whole idea.
Okay, so that's his question. How does that jive with what we say all the time? That if you cut your finger, you haven't cut your finger. That's exactly his question. He wants to put these two things in perspective.
One is tsar and one is changing.
There's an important principle that you need to understand. We have spoken many times at different levels. But more recently, we say that the neshama is mislabish in the group through various koiches, starting from Rotzen and Oinek, and then going down into Seichel and Chochmah Bina, and Das. And starting from Das begins a new series, a new development that's called Midas. And we explain the important principle of Das. Das is not knowledge of a specific, of a definable quality. Das is the total awareness that a person has in the reality of worldly living, of his worldly living. In other words, even though the nefesh itself is completely above das, above world altogether, the nefesh itself is in Oyineg and Rotzen, the nefesh itself is higher than any Rotzen. It's higher than being mislavish in the guf. But it's mislavish in the guf. It is true. It's not the etzema nefesh that mislavish in the guf. The etzema nefesh remains above. But whatever aspect of the nefesh is mislavish in the guf, that gives life to the guf, there is a hislapshus. And that hislapshus, that a part of the nefesh that mislavish in the guf, is actually experiencing what's happening in the guf. The nefesh senses the tsar haguf. It's not damaged by it, but it senses the tsar haguf.
So if you cut yourself in that sense, then
The tsar is felt in the nefesh also. But the nefesh is not damaged and it can recuperate. The same is in terms of Mitzvah Beis Adov. Mitzvah Beis Adov and Yivshad, some things in the world bother him. Being that we're talking about the nefesh that mislavish in the group, if something in the world bothers him, then this world, that's his whole reality. That level of nefesh that mislavish in the group, that is the reality in which it is oriented. And if something is wrong over there, the nefesh senses this wrong, and it's mitzvah. So this is the principle of Yom Hashem. The nefesh is mislavish in the guf, and it's mislavish in the guf in totality, which means that it gives the guf a sense of reality. But now, what is the reality? What is the essential reality? That which is the worldly experience.
I understand the tsar, the guf.
Huh?
I understand the tsar from the guf that the nefesh can experience, but there's also what we could call psychological tsar or depression. It has nothing.
I'm talking about sickness. A healthy person is in a state of tsar. There are all kinds of things that can happen. Talking about plain healthy person is tsar. Like I said, a person lost all his possessions. That is, the least hurtful example that we can have hundreds of. God forbid. He lost his possessions. It's very hurtful. Some people can't recuperate from this because of the tsar. But most people do recuperate. So when he is b'tzar, okay, Baruch, this is an explanation to it.
Yeah, this is, and the reason they recuperate is because of the nefesh, shlemus of the nefesh.
The Atzim is saying that it's a shlemus of nefesh. He feels the tsar. At that time, he's preoccupied with the tsar, and he does not experience oynek from things that normally he would experience oynek from.
And that was the proof that
There's a proof that the experience of oynek in any specific element is one with the experience of oynek in the nefesh itself. They're not two separate entities.
But so then why is it that when the Einig in the anything in the nefesh is still there. A person is mitzar. A healthy person doesn't say, well, then let's give up on all of it. He still has a desire to live. He still is misanig in life. So why is it that even though he has, so to speak, the wellspring of essential einig, but it's not able to spread out because of the tzar? So a person is cut on his hand, and he thinks, so I don't want to hear a song right now, I'm in pain. But he doesn't think, I don't want to live anymore. Right? What's stopping that einig to be mispashid into the different keches, into the different chushim? It's still there. The essential etzem, the etzem matainik is still there.
There is in living, so the oineg hatayim, oineg of living, I say, there are two. At the minimum, we have to identify two levels: the oineg of living and the oineg of experiencing living. Experiencing life. Oineg of living is very, very deep. And at that level, a person can take enormous amount.
Can what?
Can take enormous amount. The learning of experiencing life, that is what participates in all the various koyches. That oineg is also related to the original oineg of living, but that is a step down. And this is what actually spreads in all the koyches.
You mentioned before, and I think Noach asked this question previously, but I don't think you touched on it. If a person is mitzvah, you said that, let's say, when he hears music, he won't appreciate. He won't appreciate it because he's not experiencing oineg. But that sounds like an external factor. Technically, if there was no oineg, his hearing shouldn't even work, because essentially, if there's no oineg, there's no koyach.
There are, as mentioned, this week, there are different levels in the activity, in the experience of a koyach. There is the life element, the sensitivity, and there is the course element, the focus element. Like, for example, I hit my hand on the table, I'm bound to feel it. I touch the table, not necessarily, it depends how sensitive I am. How sensitive I am at this moment. If I'm preoccupied, I don't even feel that I'm touching it. So, you're talking about the koyach per se, that the koyach is able to do whatever he's doing. Sometimes it is true that person can't even activate his koyach. But like a koyach of hearing, which is activated by virtue of being hit, so he will not hear the richness of the sound, but the sound itself, which vibrates his membranes, that he's bound to hear, because it's a physical activity. But to appreciate it, this is already the final element of the sensitivity, that he will not have that.
So even though externally he's mitzvah, internally there is.
If you ever hear a person say, "Why are you screaming?" I'm not screaming, I'm speaking very softly. I'm speaking very softly. Why are you saying I'm screaming? Because you are so disposed, you are so turned off from sound, that any sound is screaming. You're not even sensitive to what's going on.
A person person wasn't actually screaming?
The person wasn't actually, I mean, this happens
Right.
when a person is very tense or something. Why are you
Preoccupied
screaming?
with
Stop
something
screaming
else.
at me. Who's screaming at you?
And it's usually the other way around.
It could be the other way around as well. רק כאשר הנפש הוא בעינג בעצם, only when the nefesh is in essence in a state of oineg, he actually experiences the experience of life, oz hu misaneg b'chol hanal, then he will actually be misaneg in all of the above, that in all the various experiences of the koiches. Hare, thus we see, שהתיינוג הוא תיינוג הנפש עצמו, that the תיינוג itself, the essence of the תיינוג is actually the תיינוג of the nefesh itself. וכל מוקוים, and yet still, הרי הוא בו בהגבולה והכויכויס, and yet still, this תיינוג of the nefesh comes in, which means it's mislabish and it experiences an oineg in a very minute, limited manner, as it is experienced in each koich separate, like Bola in the koiches. We have to see in the next line, otherwise we'll be in the middle of nowhere. Quickly, and then tomorrow we'll finish it up. Shaharei hatainuk be'etzem muslim mufsud. The point in these words, Ariyo bo b'hagbola b'koiches, means to say that this tainuk undergoes a limiting experience. There's a limiting effect. In other words, this tainuk that's in the koiches is not the same tainuk as it is in the nefesh, unaffected. No. There's an effect of hagbola, of limiting the oinuk. Why did we say that? Being that the tainuk itself, in essence, is completely free of all the koiches. It's a tainug nefesh which is free of all the koiches. It does not, there is not in the nefesh oineg of dibur or shmiya or li or anything like that. It's Muslim, it's completely above all the koiches. V'im kein, and therefore, ma shebo mislavish b'ha koiches, the fact that the tainug is then comes down and it's mislavish and it's actually imbued and experienced in the koiches, harei zeh hagbola, that constitutes a hagbola on the koich. And this we'll discuss next time, tomorrow. But the point is that there is an actual effect of hagbola. This is not the oineg as it is in the nefesh, although it is the oineg nefesh. And now we will interrupt for my.
By the way, what happened with the silver that was being printed?
Be well, I good enough.
If people are in denial, just,
What happened?
Did you?
I didn't get a copy.
No? Okay. So you're the first to will give you a copy.
Did you give everyone a copy already?
Everybody got a copy.
Where was I? Forgot about me.
Well, he made a
Didn't get me an email.
he made a presentation on the Sunday morning.
What? It was a presentation?
Yes.
Nobody told me anything.
Bro, I'm gonna give back our spot.
Give them all back. Let's do it again. I would have wanted to be a part of that.
Oh, well.
I feel bad.
So, he was even talking about giving two.
What?
He was talking about giving